Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And we got the big boys this week over in Nashville. We got Lewis taking on Teixeira in the main event. And speaking of big boys, I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And as always, the Ground and Pound podcast is going to start off in the early prelims, head all the way to the main event. And I'm sure that Princess is watching. If you don't know, we know he's a regular here on the Ground and Pound podcast. And he's going to be tuning in and joining us for the early prelim opener of Melissa Martinez taking on Fatima Kline. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos. Who you got in this prelim opener?
I went with Fatima Kline. Kline's going to bring like a very well-rounded game into the cage, but she needs to get the fight to the ground pretty much. And the only reason I say that is I don't think she's going to be in danger. I think she can strike well enough where she can actually start to win on the feet. And it's a means to an end for her to take her opponent down. Look for the submission, but Martinez is actually pretty slick on the feet. She's not bad. She's very aggressive. She's got good movement. She has decent striking ability, and she's game. So if Kline actually wants to stay up, I think that's probably the worst decision she could make. That'll make this fight a little 50-50. So taking it to the ground, looking to finish it with either some ground and pound or submission, and just some ground control, I think that would be the best option for her. So I went with Fatima Kline.
Yeah, two for Fatima Kline here. I do think it's kind of outrageous that she's the biggest favorite on this entire card. I think that's kind of crazy, especially if this one plays out on the feet, like Carlos said. I do think Fatima Kline is definitely going to look to get this fight to the ground. Training partner of Erin Blanchfield. She's the double champ over in Cage Fury at flyweight and at strawweight. She does have very good transitions on the ground if she can get fights to the ground. She looks very, very comfortable in the grappling. She will soften up her opponent with ground and pound, which I do really like. And we saw in that last fight against Victoria Dudakova that if she gets you in an advantageous position, she will look to finish the fight. I do think that Melissa Martinez is very game. She is very, very good, especially on the feet. I would like to give her the edge in the striking, that's for sure. I just think she's a little bit undersized at this weight class. I think that she's probably better off at atom weight, which obviously the UFC doesn't have. She does bounce around on the outside. She does step in with the right hand. I have seen her try to mix in takedowns, but I don't think she'll try and do that here against Kline. I think she's best served sprawling and brawling for this matchup, but I do think that Fatima Kline will get this one done on the ground, getting the submission victory. She does take part in a lot of grappling tournaments as well. She was able to get a submission victory, I did notice, over my ex-wife, Vanessa Demopoulos, when I was looking through Tapology. Hats off to Kline. I think that, anytime you can sub my ex-wife, it's always good. A little inside joke here on the Ground and Pound podcast. But give me Kline here to get this one done. I'm going to say second round submission to kick things off in the early prelims. And next up, we have Mike Davis taking on Mitch Ramirez. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Beast Boy, Mike Davis. I think he should get the W on Saturday against Ramirez. Although, Ramirez is a good fighter. He can hang with everybody they've put him in the cage with thus far. The problem is I don't think he has like the sting or that special skill in the submission or stand up or specialist in any way to get that done. I don't know what it is. It's like he can hang with you. He can give you a run for your money, but then he ends up not getting the decision or he ends up getting the submitted or beat, and that's fine. Maybe that's something he's got to work through or work over, but I don't know at 32 if he's going to be able to get over that hump. But against Mike Davis is just pressure. He's going to come at you. He's going to throw bombs. He's got some solid wrestling. He's got great punching. He's just athletic. He's dynamic, explosive. I don't see him being in any trouble in this matchup. Although, Ramirez could probably pose some difficulty keeping him on the ground if it gets to that. I just feel that Davis is going to keep this standing and probably just beat him up on the feet.
Yeah, Mike Davis had a very interesting performance in his last fight against Faraz ZM. I know Carlos and I both picked ZM in that fight as an underdog way back in the day, but there was a little bit of controversy around that one that there was paint fumes back in the locker rooms where guys were warming up. Mike Davis came out and just said he wasn't himself. It affected him very drastically. I don't know if that was an excuse for his performance, but he definitely didn't look himself in that fight. He was pulling guard very early in that fight. He just didn't quite look all there in that one. A little bit of a strange performance, but I do think he bounces back here. Mitch Ramirez, we saw him on Contender Series take on Carlos Prates and get knocked out. Obviously, Carlos Prates has proven to be very good out of the fighting nerds. He did get knocked out in the third round against Thiago Moises, who isn't even known for the power in his hands. But Mitch Ramirez does have decent wrestling. He is a little bit of a stocky build guy, very short reach, especially for this division. I don't really like his striking at all. I think he's very, very hittable. I think that he's very plodding on the feet. I think he's a little bit too muscle bound and a little bit too slow here for Mike Davis. And like Carlos said, Mike Davis is a guy that is very, very athletic, very explosive. He has a very nice timed right hand counter that he was able to drop Levy with in his recent fight. I think it was second fight after the one he just had against ZM. He will mix in the kicks, Davis. He will mix in the wrestling, but I think ultimately this one really just comes down to the striking. Like Carlos said, I think the faster, more explosive Davis here gets back in the win column, probably with a knockout here, maybe inside the first or second round. So give me Mike Davis here. Very confident in Mike Davis this week to get back into the win column. He did look like a world beater before. I think he comes back on top in this one. And next up, we have the battle of the big fellas. We got Valter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother, taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Kennedy Nzechukwu. Nzechukwu is the one thing that I've noticed him going up to heavyweight. Yeah, that's great. His fight output, his striking output has gone up. But he's actually very light on his feet, and he looks like an athlete. At 205, he was a little lumbering, not on the balls of his feet, not moving, very fleet of foot. But now he's a little lighter. He comes in quick. He can come out quick. I think that's going to be a problem for Walker because Walker needs to get that takedown. Now, Walker does have good takedowns, good wrestling. I've seen him actually go for double legs, hit the corner, and get the takedown, which you don't see big men do very often. So if he can time it on Nzechukwu, he can get him. But the way he looks now at heavyweight, he's light, he's a mover, he sticks behind that jab. I think that's going to be very hard for Walker. And if this stays on the feet, if they're upright for this entire fight, I think Kennedy gets the nod.
Yeah, I originally wanted to pick Valter Walker in this one. He's really impressed me. He's a guy that I've bet on in the past as an underdog coming in after his weight loss. Did fight on the Russian regional scene. Is pretty much known as kind of a wrestle heavy style. He could, if you didn't know he was Brazilian and you looked at him, you wouldn't be surprised if someone told you he was Russian with his fighting style. Heavy wrestling approach, like Carlos said, double legs, single legs. He can really run the pipe well. And ever since he's sort of lost a little bit of that, I don't want to say belly fat because I don't want to imply that he was fat to begin with, but he's slimmed down and he's looked good since cutting a little bit of that weight and coming off of 2 back-to-back heel hook finishes. And he will actually go for that heel hook when he's actually in full guard, which I really like. You don't see a lot of big guys going for heel hooks and having success, but I do think here that if this fight stays on the feet, like Carlos said, I do think Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to have a lot of success. I think Walker's going to go for the takedowns early. Kennedy tend to be a slow starter. Even at heavyweight, he tends to kind of pick his shots and start a little bit slow. When you look at the Kutalaba fight at light heavyweight, he did kind of get out grappled and outshined in that early first round, especially with the grappling here. I could see that fight playing out a little bit like this one. Kennedy has to kind of fight off the takedowns and come back into striking in the second round. Kennedy as well is just a physical specimen, like Carlos said. At heavyweight, he's looked fantastic from fight to fight. His striking has improved. He looks a lot lighter on his feet. 83-inch reach, which is a real problem, especially for a guy like Walker who wants to get on the inside and get the takedowns and get the wrestling going. And to me, I just think that the improvement here in Kennedy's game is going to be all it takes. He's already been tough to take down due to his size, his height, his reach is just something to behold. And I think realistically, the longer this one plays out on the feet, the longer that Kennedy is going to have to be able to find the knockout blow here. And I do think that I've kind of been a little bit hard on Kennedy in the past. He does have very nice striking. I think at heavyweight he's probably found his home. And one of the things I did notice before I wrap up this breakdown here is Kennedy has a really nice knee that he sets up the middle. He literally just lifts up his leg due to his length. I think that could be a great weapon here against a guy like Valter Walker that's looking to shoot for takedowns. I think that he times one of those knees maybe when Valter Walker comes in. I think it'll be a great weapon for him to use in this matchup. But give me Kennedy and Nzechukwu here to get it done with the striking.
Well, we head off of that one. I just wanted to say one thing. At 27 years old, Walker can add all sorts of new, tools to the toolbox. He could pick up any other new technique, but he's primarily just a wrestler. With Njokuani, the knees would be good. If he can throw some uppercuts, that would be great. But I know you had to body shame him and talk about his little chub in the middle. And as a guy that has a little chub in the middle, don't worry, Walker. I'll take care of him for you.
Don't get sensitive on me now, Princess. Speaking of two absolutely gorgeous princesses, we've got Lauren Lucky Murphy taking on Eduarda Moura, and I'm going to kick this one off here. I'm going with Moura. It's really hard to get behind Lucky Lauren Murphy here. 41 years old, coming off of 2.5-year layoff. Obviously, she's been on an absolute decline since her title attempt over against Valentina Shevchenko. She was dominated in that fight, coming off her loss as well against Jessica Andrade. And I just think that realistically, Lauren Murphy at this point is really just gritty and tough. She just likes to get into the pocket. She likes to box. She likes to get body lock takedowns and trips. She's always game, but she did show, a good takedown defense against Miesha Tate. So maybe she is able to defend some takedowns here against Moura. But as we saw in Miesha Tate's last fight, her wrestling isn't all that either. So I do think Moura is the younger, more hungry fighter here. I think she's going to have the better cardio. I think she's really found her weight class now. She did miss weight in her previous 2 fights before the one she just had at this weight class, moving up. She does fight at the same gym as Jalton Almeida. Very similar game plan as well. She likes to mix in the wrestling. I do think for this division that she's going to obviously have better cardio due to not having to cut so much weight. And I just think that here she's going to be able to run through a 41-year-old Lauren Murphy. I do think that the straight right hand is going to be there as well. I think with the speed advantage that Moura possesses on the feet, she can pretty much win this fight wherever it goes. I do think that Murphy's tough, so I do think it'll probably be a decision here for Moura. I think that the pop is going to be on the side of Moura, like I said, with that straight right hand. I think she can put up more volume. And we even saw in that fight when she had against Denise Gomes, she shot something like 25 takedowns, only got 5 of them, but her cardio, even at the smaller weight class, still was able to hold up, even with that drastic weight cut. And she sticks to a game plan. So I have no doubt here she's going to be able to mix in some wrestling and get it done with the striking. Give me more to get it done. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Well, I want to say it's tough to count out Lauren Murphy because she is pretty gritty. And her quote is, when these girls feel when I get a hold of them and they feel my strength, they start to wilt a little bit and they get surprised. Well, to be honest with you, against big grapplers, we were talking about that earlier. I don't think she does very well. It's in her record. But she's a good size for the weight class. Okay. And she's a very good grappler. She's got good stand-up ability, a lot better than Lauren Murphy. And I think that she can pretty much keep this on the feet and just have her way with her on the feet. I think when it gets to the ground, I think she's going to be able to control her there as well. One thing I think is once it gets to the ground, I don't feel that 41 Murphy's going to be this strong grappler that Moura is. She's going to be young. She's going to be moving. She's going to be tough to keep down, tough to take down, tough to keep in place. I'm going with Moura.
Yeah, I think the only way Lauren Murphy wins this one is if she gets lucky. I was getting ready for the drum and cymbals there. I can't lie. And next up, we have Jake Matthews taking on Chidi and Njokuani. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. I'm excited for this one. Who you got in this one?
Got to give me Chidi Bang Bang, to get this done. Both are very good. They like to throw leg kicks. I got to say, Chidi likes to throw them a little bit more, whereas Matthews likes to lean towards the boxing. Chidi at 170 is big enough where once the grappling gets into play, He can get back to his feet. He can actually stuff the takedowns a little bit better. But getting back to his feet is the biggest issue because at 185, once he's down, he's down. At 170, Jake Matthews doesn't really like to take you down too much. So I think this is going to play out well for Chidi. I think that everything that Jake does in the stand-up, Chidi does just a little bit better. What I do like about Matthews is when he starts boxing and he starts letting his hands go, he could be a problem. But with the reach advantage that Chidi has, when he comes in, he's going to have to look out for uppercuts. He's going to have to look out for those knees. Chidi's going to rip those legs when he steps in. So I'm going with Chidi on this one, and I feel pretty good. Matthews is a tough kid. I feel pretty good with Chidi.
Yeah, I feel like I have a good read on this one too. I'm going with Chidi Bang Bang for sure. 3-0 since moving up to welterweight from moving down to welterweight from middleweight. He's had a lot of success. I think in the first few fights that he had at welterweight, for example, against Reese McKee, I think he was a little bit concerned that, to kind of test out his cardio to see how good his cardio was going to be now that he's had this weight cut. I think he trusts, his cardio now at this weight class. He's got obviously improved takedown defense, like Carlos mentioned, at this weight class. And one of the things that we've always known and loved about Chidi Bang Bang is his Thai style. Everything is linear. Everything is straight. He loves the teep kick down the middle. He'll poke at the belly with that huge, long sort of reach advantage that he has with the legs and with the arms. With the arms, it's a 7-inch reach advantage here against a guy like Matthews. Matthews pretty much only uses the boxing. He will throw a couple of kicks, but I think Chidi will really just keep him out at range here with long range attacks like that teep kick. I think he'll light up the calf as well. When Matthews gets frustrated, he'll come in, maybe even try to clinch, maybe even try to wrestle. But we know with Chidi Njokuani that he's got very, very nice Thai clinch as well, knees and elbows. And I think this is a great stylistic matchup for Chidi, to be honest with you. I think he can keep this one standing. And I just think with Matthews that the way I see his fights going is that he can have success if he's the one going forward. When you look at the Michael Morales fight, when he's the one pressuring forward, he has some nice moments, some nice combinations in that fight. When he's the one skirting around on the outside and he's the one being pressured, he can't really get off the fence. That's when he seems to struggle. And I think realistically, the size, the frame, the reach here of Chidi, he's going to plant his feet in the middle of the octagon. He's going to be throwing teeps. He's going to be throwing calf kicks. He's going to be using that jab. And I think that Matthews is going to be skirting around on the outside here and really just struggling to go forward. So I think give me the size, give me the reach, give me Chidi Bang Bang to get it done here. 2 for Chidi in the win column. I think he might even get the knockout late. And next up, we have Chris Curtis taking on Max Griffin, the battle of the Oldens. I'm going to call this one the retirement castle fight. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going with Action Man, Chris Curtis, my boy here. Even though he's good, I like Chris Curtis. I love the whole Action Man thing. What I don't like is when guys at 37 years old start to lose weight to, keep their career going. Chris Curtis is very technical. He's got good takedown defense. Stand-up wise, he's got that shell and he rolls his head, rolls with punches, rolls his shoulders. He's very good, checks kicks. I don't see Max Griffin giving him any bit of a problem, to be honest with you. And I just see that Chris will dominate this because his skill is just going to take over, whereas Griffin is kind of sporadic. He'll jump in, throw some combinations, probably throw you up against the cage, try to clinch you there, try to get for a takedown, but that's not really his style. Like, he likes to mix up, but sporadically. Like, I wish I could say like there's a method to his madness, but he just goes with what's open sometimes. And with Chris Curtis, he's a skilled fighter. This is going to be an easy matchup for him. The only thing that I'm kind of nervous about is how does he do at 170 instead of 185? At 185, he's not the biggest 185er, so being down to 170, I don't think is going to be that big of a deal, but he stays pretty relaxed under fire. He's very poised. He doesn't really breathe too heavy in his fights, even at 185. So I don't see Max giving him problems. I'm not, this, I'm not a fan when somebody loses weight as they get older. You should be moving up in weight as you get older, not down.
Yeah, the way I would describe Max Griffin, I don't know if you feel like this is accurate, Carlos. You'll have to let me know, but I feel like it's like jack of all trades, master of none. He strikes me as one of these guys that he can mix in a little bit of wrestling, but it's not his main skill set. He can mix in the boxing, but it's not his main skill set, and nothing really just stands out to you. He can beat guys with one element of his game if he's able to catch him or get him in the right time, but nothing just seems to, like you said, nothing seems to sort of stand out, and he kind of mixes everything in whenever he wants to, but there's not really a sort of a method to the madness. And I think with a guy like Chris Curtis here, I do agree with you that the drop in weight might be an issue, but Chris Curtis, we know exactly what he wants to do from fight to fight. He's kind of got a little bit of that like rolling Philly shell. He rolls with punches really, really well. He rips to the body. He's got great output, fantastic takedown defense, obviously a main sparring and training partner of Sean Strickland. And he does a fantastic job of just, kind of sticking to what he knows and what his bread and butter is. So I don't really think that Max Griffin's going to have an answer here for Chris Curtis. I think Chris Curtis gets back in the win column after that head kick knockout of Roman Kopylov, the terrible stoppage there by Mark Smith, in my opinion. I do think that Chris Curtis is very tough for the most part. He's been very durable for the most part. And I think realistically his boxing shines through here against a guy like Max Griffin. I think this should get him back in the win column here. I think he'll roll with the punches, land his shots. We might even see a late TKO or a late knockout here from Chris Curtis. And I like Curtis this week. I think he's pretty confident. I think he's a little bit of a respectable favorite here, and for good reason. I think he gets it done. I think he gets back in the win column with his boxing. And next up, Junior Tafa taking on Tuco Tokkos. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Don't rub your eyes. This is to open the main card of a UFC pay-per-view. I'm actually disgusted with this one, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Junior Tafa. I mean, Tafa's a brawler. Not very skilled in anything really. Like I guess you could say kickboxing because he throws punches. He does throw kicks, but he doesn't really do much of any grappling, and he doesn't really have much defense for it. But against Tokkos, I think he's going to be okay. I think he's actually going to get the finish in this fight. Tokkos is another guy you want to say a jack of all trades, but he doesn't do anything great either. And when I watch his regional scene fights, he looks like someone that should be in the UFC. But when you watch his UFC fights, you think, this guy should be on the regional scene. I wish I knew how to explain that to you, to the viewers better. But that's the best way to describe it. And Tokkos just can't get that. I don't know. He doesn't have that thing to get over again. And just like we were talking about in the last fight, he just doesn't have that. I don't know what it is, whether it's the zip on the punch, the technical ability, the skill. I don't know what it is. And I wish I knew it because I would tell him. But I'm going to go with Tafa. I'm probably wrong here because Tokkos does have some grappling ability. And if he gets this to the ground, Tafa could be in a lot of trouble. He's not very skilled, doesn't really have good get up once he's down there. And I'll take Tafa because I think he's probably going to land the shot before Tokkos can take him down.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed that Tokkos is representing England with the England flag here, to be honest with you. I'm definitely going to be picking Tafa in this matchup, not going with my countrymen, that's for sure. Tokkos, I agree with you. I don't think, to be honest, I don't think either of these guys are UFC level. I think you wouldn't be surprised if you saw these on a regional scene MMA promotion. But I wrote here in my notes that Tuco Tokkos trains at Kill Cliff FC, even though his skills look like they've fallen off of a cliff. I just don't really see it. I think his wrestling is the only thing that's probably anywhere near remotely a path to victory. And we've seen with Junior Tafa that he can get taken down in fights and controlled. We saw in the Valter Walker fight that he got heel hooked. I believe it was what's the Brazilian guy's name? He'll come to me in a second, but even that guy went for takedowns against him and was able to get it. So I do think that Tokkos would be able to be best served here, mixing in the wrestling against a guy like Junior Tafa. But I'm with you, Carlos. I think that he's going to be able to find the kill shot. Tokkos is very unathletic, very plodding on the feet, very, very hittable, 35 years old, been knocked out in most of his losses as well. Tafa, both the brothers, we know that they do carry some power in their hands. I just see this as Tafa knocks him out or Tokkos rides a decision here with the wrestling, and it's a very, very boring fight. Why this fight is kicking off the main card, I don't know. Dana, sort it out. What the hell are we doing here? Give me Tafa to find the knockout like Carlos said also. And next up, we have Austen Lane taking on Vitor Petrino. Petrino making his heavyweight debut here inside the UFC. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Vitor Petrino. You know, although he's moving up in weight, I feel that he's got a little bit more skill. He puts it all together better than Austen Lane. Austen Lane, on the other hand, he has all the physical abilities, the speed, the power, quickness, agility, but for some reason he just can't put it together. I don't know what it is about him, but I don't know. He just can't get over the hump, and he's in there with some killers. He should be a killer himself. But anyway, I'm gonna go with Petrino because I there's a couple questions that have to be answered for me at heavyweight, but I think he can get over the hump with Austen Lane, and I think I need to see how he does against bigger grapplers because at 205 he's able to muscle his way back to his feet. Um, Striking wise, how does he take punches from a heavyweight? I don't think he's going to be undersized at heavyweight at all. I think when he fills out, he's going to be about a 230, 240-pound guy. I think he's going to carry his power. And I just need to see how he does at that weight class. But I feel he's got the skill, the ability, and he puts it together better. So I'm going with Petrino in this one.
Yeah, I think both guys are pretty, physically very gifted. Austen Lane, a former football player, I believe he had tryouts with the Miami Dolphins. Don't quote me on the exact team, but I know that he was potentially or going to be in the NFL. Obviously 6'6", very long for the division with an 80-inch reach, very athletic and does carry power. But the secret with him is if you touch his chin, he goes down. I believe it's either 5 or all 6 of his losses. He's been chinned and knocked out. And he will mix in the wrestling, but he just doesn't have the cardio to withstand or to sustain that over the course of 3 rounds. We saw in his fight, I believe it was against Denise, he was able to get the takedown early and ultimately get knocked out. And to me, Petrino, obviously there is question marks on his gas tank. There is question marks on how he's going to look at 265 pounds here. But I'm right there with Carlos. I think he comes in around 240 here. I think he looks, even though, he's coming in bigger than what he does. I'm sure he still has visible abs. The guy's absolutely jacked. And he's a raw talent, and raw is the complete word that I would like to use here for Petrino. He's not necessarily fundamentally sound. He's not necessarily beating you with skill and technique. He's just bull rushing you. And I think that the difference here is that Petrino, although he is obviously a very raw talent, I can trust his chin a little bit more. I think that he's obviously a little bit more explosive. I think that he's a little bit more technical than Austen Lane. And I do think that both guys have a lot of upside. I just think that Petrino overall here is going to get it done with the striking. I think he carries a little bit more power, and I can't really trust Austen Lane's chin. I think if Petrino wants to be able to mix in the wrestling, I think that he can. I think that would wear on the gas tank of Lane. However, I do think that Petrino is going to get this one done early with the hands. I think he's just going to walk Lane down and ultimately find the knockout. And next up, we have Nate the Train Landwehr taking on Morgan Charriere. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I'm going with Charriere in this one. I'm a fan of the reckless approach of Landwehr. I love watching those gritty back and forth fights, and he ends up pulling it out in the end. But when you watch how Doo Ho Choi absolutely just brutalized this guy on the feet, you understand that when he's fighting you, he expects you to go at that pace with him because he needs you to get gassed. He needs you to get a little bit fatigued. And what Doo Ho Choi showed was if I have more skill, more talent, all I got to do is pick my spots against you. And he hurt him with some shots pretty bad in that fight that slowed him down. And I feel Morgan Charriere could do the exact same thing. I think he's got the speed, the power, and he's got the skill on the feet. If he wants to take it to the ground, he can go there with him. And I feel that even if Landwehr gets him down, Charriere is going to get back up, and he's going to be able to do the exact same thing Doo Ho Choi did and just beat him up on the feet. I love Landwehr, but if he's not going forward and bullying you, he's just going forward and getting beat up. He doesn't have another speed. He doesn't have another plan. It's always go forward or just get beat. And I think this is going to be another scenario where he's just going to get pummeled for 3 rounds.
Yeah, and I just want to add in there as well that the graphics are wrong before people come at me in the comments. Obviously, we fired our graphics team, so there's a little bit of an adjustment period here. But Morgan Charriere is the younger fighter at 29. Nate the Train Landwehr is at 37 here. This fight is taking place at featherweight, I do believe, so 145. Sorry, flyweight, featherweight? Yeah, featherweight, so excuse me, yeah, 145. And I'm going with Morgan Charriere here. I agree with Carlos. I do think that Nate the Train is always somebody that is always game. He's always a fan favorite. He's always ready for a brawl. But I just think that Morgan Charriere is going to do a fantastic job here of keeping this fight on the feet, using his kicks to the body. Charriere does a fantastic job of circling off the fence as well, making it difficult for him to get taken down against the fence. And to me, when I watch Nate the Train's fights, especially in that last fight against Choi, he just looked like he's kind of a step slow now. He looks like he's taking a little bit too much damage. He looks like if he can't really hurt you on the feet early, that he loses against more technical guys, and that's exactly what Morgan Charriere is. I think Charriere can really blast the body and wear on the gas tank of Landwehr. And Landwehr's even said in the past that it almost takes him time to get into fights. He needs to get hit first. And I just think against a guy like Morgan Charriere, who does have a little bit of power, he has the better technique, and ultimately, if he wants to mix in wrestling of his own, I think he could as well. I think it's going to be a long night for him. I think we're looking at the downfall here of Nate Landwehr, and I think Morgan Charriere gets it done with the striking and stuffing the takedowns. Sue me for the graphics being wrong, by the way. And next up, the one that me and Carlos are most excited about, we have Steve Garcia taking on Carlos's boy, Calvin Kattar. And it's only right that I let Carlos go first. Carlos, you're picking Steve Garcia, right?
Man, I'm taking Calvin Kattar. I know it's a surprise to you, but I'm not doing it because he's my boy. I'm doing it because I think he can do this. I think he's got good clean boxing. He holds a high guard, fights behind the jab. I would love to see him throw a little bit more leg kicks in this fight. Just to make sure that you take a little zip off of Garcia's punches, especially in the early round. I'd also like to see him if he can capitalize on Garcia overextending, because in the first round, more than anything, when he throws everything behind it as Garcia. I would love to see Calvin take him down, at least make him use some of that energy getting back up, make him get some acid, some blood, lactic acid and blood in those arms. If he would incorporate that, I think he would have not an easy night, but a better night. I think if he doesn't incorporate that, I think he could still find the openings because Garcia loves when he throws, he leans forward over his knees. I could see him get an uppercut as Calvin changes an angle on the high guard. I could see him getting countered as Calvin blocks it. So I could see some ways for him to win, but with the reckless style of Garcia on the feet, he's going to have to be on his P's and Q's. He's going to have to stay sharp. He's going to have to move. He's going to have to keep that guard up. And he's going to have to keep the body covered as well, keep those elbows tucked in. And I feel that his reckless nature is going to get him caught. I just need Calvin to pull it out. Come on, brother. I know you can do it.
I got to sit up for this one, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to say some nice things about Steve Garcia before we go over to Calvin Kattar. Obviously a fan favorite. Steve Garcia, very, very aggressive on the feet. Swings very wild over his knees, like Carlos said. He always looks for the finish, whether that be on the ground or on the feet. I do think this is a step up in competition for Steve Garcia, a step down for Calvin. Calvin obviously being on a 4-fight losing streak against high-level guys. And obviously this matchup, I think, is definitely going to be a fan favorite style for both guys. For the guys over in Nashville this week, I think both guys are going to come forward. They're going to trade. They're going to look to find the kill shot. And Steve Garcia is no doubt an absolute dog. But one thing that we can be rest assured on is Calvin fucking Kattar is going to be the dog of the week this week. Favorite betting underdog on the entire card, sitting at plus 100. I like Calvin to get it done here. When you look through his previous 4 fights, on his losing streak. Yusuf Zalal, he didn't want to stand and trade with Calvin in the pocket. He had to dance around on the outside. I'd name him Roadrunner for a reason. He didn't want anything to do with Calvin's power. He didn't want anything to do with Calvin's boxing. When you look at his fight before that with Aljamain Sterling, Aljamain didn't want nothing to do with the stand-up of Calvin. He knew he had to take him down and wrestle, fuck him for 3 rounds. That's not going to be on the table here for Steve Garcia. We know what Steve Garcia likes to do. He likes to come forward, reckless abandonment. He's going to get caught. You know who the last 2 guys that really stand out to be that come forward with reckless abandonment that Calvin Kattar fought? Shane Burgos, Jeremy Stevens. What happened to both of those? Find out on the Dog of the Week video. You can see it in the highlight reel tape there. Calvin Kattar steps in with the elbow, knocks Jeremy Stevens out when he crashes the pocket. Shane Burgos comes in wild and with reckless abandonment, overextending just like Steve Garcia does. Boom, shovel uppercut, just like Carlos said. I think this one's a great matchup for Calvin Kattar here. I think Carlos is right. If he wants to mix in wrestling as well, I think that's definitely another path to victory here. I think that the betting line is Calvin as a slight underdog for a reason. I understand he's on a 4-fight losing streak. I think Calvin Kattar comes in focused, moving over to TriStar, obviously with Rob Font over there, having a lot of success. I think that he gets back in the win column here. Dog of the fucking week, Calvin Kattar. Check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. There'll be a video at the end of the day. Steve Garcia might be a dog, but Calvin's going to show that he's the bigger dog this week, getting us back on track. Dog of the week. Let's go, Calv. And next up, we take a little bit of a step back, a little bit of a deep breath there as we talk about the co-main event. And if you are enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we talk about Gabriel Bonfim taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. 42 years old, but not losing too much of a step. Carlos, who you got in this co-main event?
All right, I know it. What is he, 42 on this one now? I'm going with Wonderboy, okay? And it would be beneficial for Bonfim to be able to take him down. Bonfim takedowns aren't necessarily like a wrestler's takedown. He's going to get you up against the cage and he's going to try to just take you down, get a body lock, and possibly a foot sweep down. But one of the things is if you don't know like some technical wrestling, you're going to have a hard time taking Wonderboy down. And if you're going to have a hard time taking him down on the feet, you're going to have a hard time keeping him in place. And Bonfim, I think that's where I think that's what's going to happen ultimately. I think Wonderboy is going to be able to stuff the takedown. He's going to be able to keep this on the feet. He's going to use his in and out movement, and he's going to keep distance with Bonfim and just outpoint him. Bonfim's going to actually have to make this ugly to take him down. And he's going to have to rush him. He's going to have to slam up against the cage, clinch him, work the body a little bit, get that takedown, run the pipe, whatever he has to do. He's going to have to change levels to get him down, anything. And I just don't know if he has the skill or the technique to do that. I haven't seen him use any real technical wrestling to get him down, to get his opponents down in the past. I feel that with the skill that Wonderboy has defensively with those takedowns, I feel that a lot of people have problems taking him down. Gilbert Burns, he was adamant in his wrestling to get him down. And, obviously Tyron Woodley could take him down whenever he feels like it. I don't think that Bonfim has that base to take him down. And I want to see Wonderboy get this victory, get back on track. Love you, Wonderboy. Get it done for me, please.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything that you said. I've really flip-flopped back on this one a few times this week, but ultimately decided to land on Bonfim this week. And I do think that Wonderboy is very live on this fight, especially as an underdog. We saw in that Joaquin Buckley fight that was probably 1-1, maybe even 2-0 for Wonderboy going into that final round before he was kind of had that flash knockout. He did a fantastic job of timing Buckley as he came in with his striking. I love the way that Wonderboy kind of just floats on the feet, even at 42. He's very, very fast for this division. Snappy high kicks, fantastic takedown defense, especially up against the cage. He uses that oblique side kick as well to sort of stomp the lead leg. And I think that Wonderboy could definitely find the upset here. He does a really good job of sort of, as guys come in, especially shooting for takedowns, he kind of has those little short right hands or left hands that he'll throw that can just find the chin sometimes and rock guys. And he's still very impressive even at 42. And to be Gabriel Bonfim, 13 of his 17 wins coming via submission. Obviously was able to get that Darce choke victory over Chaos Williams in his last fight. And to me, this fight really just depends on how, one, is Bonfim going to come in and try and stand up with Wonderboy? Is he going to be able to work a lot of his wrestling in? If he sticks to a wrestle-heavy game plan, he might be able to have success. I just don't know how he's going to back up Wonderboy in this fight, which is why I'm not confident in Bonfim. I don't know if he can be able to corral Wonderboy up against the fence to be able to get the takedowns. Also, that's where Wonderboy is at his best when it comes to defending takedowns. If Bonfim can get takedowns out in the open, which are going to be much tougher to do, timing his entries as Wonderboy comes in. I do think that he's going to be able to look to get into dominant positions, whether that be half guard and just kind of pin Wonderboy to the ground and ride out top control, or getting the back and getting in that body triangle and riding out the positions, dominant positions in rounds here to win rounds with top control or dominant positions. I just think Bonfim overall is going to need to mix in takedowns to get this one done. I just think it's hard to trust Wonderboy after that flash knockout as well. You know, I see the age, it just kind of puts me off, but I do have to admit, I don't think Wonderboy has necessarily lost too much of a step. I think he's the better striker here, and if film plays out on the feet, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it done, but I'm going to go with Bonfim just to be able to get top control here and ride out rounds, and a pretty boring fight with a lot of grappling, heavy approach here from Bonfim to get it done in the co-main event. And next up, we have the heavyweight main event here in Nashville. Derrick, the Black Beast Lewis, taking on Tallison, Teixeira. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in the main event?
I want to take the Black Beast because, it only takes one. And to be honest, I feel this fight is going to start and end on the feet. I'm not going to say unfortunately, but I'm going to take Teixeira, okay? And there's nothing wrong with taking him. The kid he's tall, he's got long reach. He's actually very patient and technical on the feet. He's always looking for and creating openings with his striking. And, I haven't seen a lot of his ground game at all. His fights are finishing very quickly. I think he has a win by submission. I think it was armbar in his first fight as a pro, and I haven't seen any other submissions other than that. He's just been knocking people out, and that's what freaks me out, is because I'm a big Derrick Lewis fan. I don't want to see him get dropped again, and I think if this fight stays on the feet, I don't think it ends well for Derrick Lewis. Although he can just lunge in and throw a bomb and probably catch him and drop him, the chances of that against a guy that long, that tall, that technical, that happening, you're going to have to be very lucky to land that, and I just don't see that happening. I'm going with Teixeira, but I totally want Lewis to pull this off, but my pick is I'm going with Tallison Teixeira.
Yeah, currently over in the UK, we have a heat wave, so it's an appropriate time for me to say that my balls is hot. Derrick Lewis hasn't fought in 14 months. The last fight he had to pull out with due to sickness. I watched an interview that he did when he talked about that fight cancellation, and he said the reason for him having to pull out of that fight was due to him actually getting his period. He said he couldn't fight because he had cramps, and he just didn't feel like fighting because of his mood swings. So the ever-entertaining Derrick Lewis, that's for sure, a fan favorite, always coming out with some great one-liners, as I just mentioned, but obviously just swings the wild hooks, UFC all-time leader in knockouts, and also has some of the best takedown defense in the world of just get up, as Carlos and I have mentioned many times in private conversations. His ability to get up off the ground is second to none by just ignoring jiu-jitsu and getting up and defying physics altogether. And the thing that I really notice here when I do tape study on Derrick Lewis is obviously he has looked worse in the last few fights, struggled against Volkov, obviously a very similar opponent in terms of height and reach to a guy like Teixeira. And in that fight against Volkov, even though I think Volkov's much more technical and higher level than Teixeira is, Volkov hurt Derrick Lewis multiple times in that first few rounds before Lewis was able to get that kind of buzzer beater knockout uppercut. Volkov was absolutely putting it on him, and I just don't think at 40, I don't think that he's going to be able to withstand the onslaught of Teixeira. Teixeira comes out very, very quick and fast early in rounds 1 and 2. He does have a lot of power in his hands. He had a very nice elbow against Justin Tafa in his last fight. He has a very nice high kick as well. I do think that Teixeira is very, very hittable. We saw in Contender Series he did get hit a few times. He does leave his chin up in the air, which is going to leave openings for Lewis, but ultimately I do think Teixeira is going to be able to get this one done with the striking. Unfortunately, like Carlos said, I'm picking Teixeira, but I'm definitely rooting for a guy like Derrick Lewis. Who doesn't love the Black Beast? And if you're living it here on the Ground and Pound podcast, you know what you have to do. Hit that like and subscribe button. And I have to let you know some of the videos that we have on the channel currently and some videos that are going to be coming to you on the channel. We have the Dog of the Week. I mentioned it here on the video. This week, Calvin Kattar, full highlight reel tape, a full explanation of why I like Calvin Kattar this week as my favorite betting underdog. I'll leave a link in that for the description so you guys can check that one out. And we also have who will win our series that we're doing right now with Islam Makhachev taking on JDM, a future matchup that the UFC is going to make. And I'm looking to see, obviously, if Islam can get it done. Carlos and I did a full breakdown of that particular fight. That video is trending very highly right now. Definitely one to watch. We also have best bets for this event for UFC Nashville that'll be live on the channel later on in the week. Carlos, is there anything you want to say to the people before we wrap things up?
Just want to tell everybody or ask everybody, I hope you're liking the content. Let us know in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We love bringing this stuff to you. And if we weren't giving it to you, we'd do it anyway. So hope you like it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are diehard fans of this sport, as you can probably tell. And one thing is for sure, we know that you're watching, Princess. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.